Hey guys, thank you so much for tuning in, and we want to give a big shout out to Squad QL for sponsoring another episode of Beer Fueled Fantasy Football. If you guys are looking for an extra edge this year to help win your fantasy football leagues, you may want to check out squadql.com. It's a mobile app that will optimally set your lineup, set waiver settings, make trade recommendations on Yahoo, ESPN, or CBS by pulling in your full roster, league settings, and everything else. Hopper makes the sign of the cross as we get started here. So if you guys are looking for an extra hand there, please check out squadql.com.
I was actually telling Dan to steal second.
Steal second. All right. Well, maybe you can steal your leagues here with squadql.com, the all-in-one fantasy football manager app. And if you are a DFS player, also check out rotoql.com, the leading daily fantasy lineup optimizer. It's trusted by over 100,000 DFS players worldwide. You can download it for free, both Apple and Android. Let's start the show. Hey guys, welcome back to Beer Fueled Fantasy Football. We're day before kickoff.
With arms wide open.
We're here with arms wide open.
Beneath the sunlight.
Yeah.
We're about to find out how much we all really didn't know.
Yep.
Yay.
Yeah, that'll be previewed to next Wednesday for the lounge segment. It's going to be what were we wrong on already after 1 week.
So basically just go back and listen to the last however many months of episodes. All of that probably.
Yes, about half of that is going to be completely wrong, but we're going to do our best to get as much right for you as we can.
Half. He's giving us way too much credit, right?
I'm reaching for the stars here.
Reach for the sky.
All right. We are Beer Fueled Fantasy Football. It is a Wednesday episode, and we are technically in season now. So on this episode, we're going to give you a whole bunch of news. We're going to do an In the Lounge segment where we talk early season strategy, including trading and roster management tips. We're going to give you our starts and our sit of the week and finish with a preview of the Thursday night game, which is Falcons at the Eagles. Hope you guys are excited for this one as I am.
Absolutely. I'm really excited for this one.
All right. I am Nick Sparts, joined by Christopher Hopper.
At Hot BFF with 2 P's. What is up, my people?
And Dan Thury.
At 30 BFF. Woo, let's go.
All right. Social media shout out as always. We are Beer Fueled FF on Twitter, Instagram, and Untapped. I started getting a bunch of trade questions today, some start sit questions. Keep those coming. You can also drop them for us at YouTube. Beer Fueled Fantasy Football, drop them there.
If you're new because I had a tweet go viral, welcome.
Yes. Yeah, almost 100,000 impressions on that.
Ended up over 200,000.
Oh, that's almost like what we get in a month on the show account. That's insane. You can also follow us on Facebook, Beer Fueled Fantasy Football as well. A reminder, Hopper, Dan, and I will be live at 10:30 in the morning Central Time on YouTube Live. So subscribe to the channel. We'll be there for all your week one start sit questions. Any developing news, injury reports, active reports, all that will be right there for you from about 10:30 to about 11 to 11:15. So bring those questions ready for us then. If you can, we appreciate any likes and comments you can drop us on any of our YouTube videos. It helps drive traffic to the episodes. In addition, reviews on iTunes are always very helpful as well. And lastly, we do have a Patreon, and we do have merch available if you want to help the show out some more. You can rock a hat, rock a shirt, let people know you're beer fueled, or Patreon if you just feel like gifting us some beer every month.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Oh, and one more thing before we kick off the beer review here. To the people that called me an arrogant douche and an arrogant asshole or something along those lines, I just want to say, yeah, no, that's pretty spot on. Yeah, you're absolutely
You're
right.
welcome.
He was still right, though, in
I
this
was
case.
pretty amusing by it. Yeah, no, you weren't wrong.
Yeah. And we have Marine Dream IPA, a hazy out India Pale Ale. Where was this from again, Hopper? Sorry, I forgot to write this down.
Coronado.
I got it from Benny's.
It's from Coronado Brewing in Coronado, California.
Coronado, California.
Coronado Brewing Company out of Coronado, California.
Coronado.
I like Coronado.
Coronado.
I like Coronado.
It's a storm.
That's just Iowa.
News.
So before we start the news, this is part of the art series. Check out Instagram for some of the can art. It actually looks pretty nice.
Pretty dope.
All right, starting with the news. Steelers named quarterback Josh Dobbs as their backup quarterback, surprising everyone.
Okay.
No, Mason Rudolph was pretty sporadic. It's irrelevant because he's going to start at least 2 games this year.
Yep, we are going to see Josh Dobbs throwing to Antonio Brown at least one game this year.
You should punt. His accuracy is a lot better.
You can ask that guy at the NFSC.
Yeah, he can hit people in the chest when he uses his foot.
Yep.
All right, LaShawn McCoy will not be placed on the commissioner's exempt list, so he'll be eligible to play Sunday. This could change at any time.
Yep.
Zeke 2.0.
Have fun, McCoy owners. I am one of them.
I am also like
I have like
I'm
3 or 4 shares.
I'm like 3 of them.
Jay Ajayi is practicing Tuesday. It looks like he is on track to go for the Thursday night opener.
He's not on their injury report, so he has a full truck to go.
It's good news.
All right, this makes things fun in New Orleans. So remember last year when they were like, we're going to keep all the running backs and make things really confusing?
Yeah, now they only have 2.
Now they just get rid of all the running backs. So Boston Scott's gone now too. So now it's literally Kamara and Gillislee. That's it.
There's
got Trey Emmons there.
He's
a
listed as a fullback.
I'm just saying.
There's got to be somebody else.
No, that is their roster.
No, I know right now, but I mean, before the week starts, like they're going to activate Williams or something. They can't go into a game with 2 running backs.
Drew Brees.
Yeah,
Drew
Brees.
How's
QB draw.
How's Will Lutz on end rounds?
Is he the new Dan Bailey?
Yes. Somebody's got to pick it up for Dan Bailey.
He is.
So yeah, is Gillislee a guy you're picking up if you have anybody turn off your roster?
Yeah, you kind of have to.
Yeah, I like Gillislee more in New Orleans than I did in New England. I'm going to say that much.
Yeah, well, and if anything happens to Kamara, God forbid.
Yeah, you might have 3+ games of an RB2.
Yeah, and he'll still get change of pace work and maybe vulture a touchdown or 2. It's worth it.
Yeah.
See what happens.
All right. Marlon Mack remains sidelines at Wednesday's practice. It looks like he is probably not going Sunday, so it should be Jordan Wilkins and Christine Michael.
I actually rotated him out of my first turn roster spot to pick up James Conner. More on that later.
Smart move.
Colts sign running back Jeremy McNichols to their practice squad.
What is dead may never die.
This is like Team 7, right?
I believe just 3.
It's a new Christine Michael.
You're not kidding.
Yeah, it's sad.
Chargers waived running back Justin Jackson.
Oh. Were you waiting for it?
I was expecting you to react. You were the one who loved him the most.
No.
Miami Herald's Armando Salguero, I think, reports Devontae Parker with his finger injury will not play week 1 against the Titans. He may not go week 2 either.
He probably helps the offense.
And he will not be missed.
He shall not be missed.
He shall not be missed.
So Stills is the one. It sounds like Amendola's out of the slot, and then Wilson's out. Wilson's the second outside guy.
And who's behind them?
I don't know. They cut everyone else I knew.
Anybody know?
Doesn't even matter.
No, it's like Akeem Grant or whatever.
Bless you.
I guess.
Eagles coach Doug Peterson says Alshon Jeffrey is quote unquote week to week, which is always awesome.
My favorite term.
Aren't we all?
We are all week to week. Try not to die.
Yeah.
Mac Hollins, with his groin injury, will not play Thursday night against the Falcons. So the starting trio is going to be Nelson Aguilar, Mike Wallace, and Shelton Gibson.
Nice. Nelson Aguilar, and Nelson Aguilar. And
a bunch of Zach Ertz.
And a lot of Zach Ertz.
A whole bunch.
There will be a ton of Zach Ertz.
It's going to be just Ertz and Aguilar.
Although in our Dynasty Listener League, which is 16 teams.
Really good news for the running backs, though. We'll talk more about that later.
Yep, but in the start 11 16 team Listener League, I'm 100% starting Mike Wallace this week.
Hell yeah.
Oh yeah.
Fuck it.
Eagles re-signed Marcus Wheaton as the 4th wide receiver.
That's sad.
How's he? Okay.
I have good news. The LaFell rule is back on the table.
I
the
saw
Raiders
that.
signed
He's
him
on
to a
the
1-year
Raiders
contract.
now. He took Martavis Bryant's roster spot. So at some point, you will be starting Brandon. Well, maybe not you personally, but somebody in your league will be starting Brandon LaFell at some point this year for some reason.
Either Cooper or Jordy is going to get dinged up. It's going to be a plus matchup, and somebody will be like, "I need Brandon LaFell."
Fuck it. Yeah.
Somebody's starting Brandon LaFell. It happens every year.
So remember on Monday how we talked about the Patriots picking up Amara Darbo?
Yeah. Not anymore.
They waived Amara Darbo.
That didn't take long.
Literally just wave goodbye.
He basically ran across the field and then left forever.
he got a free weekend vacation to New England.
It's like the Simpsons gift. Just walks into the bar and leaves right away.
That didn't take long.
Nope.
And then I forgot to write it down, but I figure I'll just save it for last anyway. We have the Le'Veon Bell situation. He still has not shown up.
Yeah.
News is week 10. That's what the Steelers Nation is predicting.
I saw that. His agent in an interview basically said that he is worried that they're going to, quote unquote, grind him into dust, so he's not playing because they don't want to ruin him for free agency.
I mean, I saw that
And then
a mile away.
the offensive line came out as 2 inside guards and said he's making 7 times what I do and twice as much as Alejandro Villanueva, and we make it happen for him. So this is a very turbulent situation. Excellent use of the word turbulent, I know.
Yep. I still have not removed Bell from my rankings. I'm going to wait till tomorrow. If he does not report by Thursday, I'm going to assume that even if he reported Friday, he would not play, or at least not play significant work.
I took the opposite approach.
Yeah.
You two.
I just assumed, I'm like, he's not going to play week 1.
But spoilers, Connor would jump in around running back 17 or 18 if I ranked him.
There you go.
So-
I think he's around 20 some odd for us.
Yeah.
All right. That is all we have for news. Let's talk in the lounge.
You knew what I was going to do for this, which was really good because I didn't have enough drops to make 3 today. I didn't have enough samples to make 3 drops today.
Suppose we have to do new drops for start instead of the week.
I did that, and I had to do one for weekly previews, actually.
Oh.
So- and then hopefully I don't have to make any more until like the off season.
All right. So for early season strategy in the lounge today, we're going to talk about some things to think about for the first couple weeks of the season. First things up, do you have any roster management tips or things that you try to think about? How do you handle churning some of the last guys off your roster? Is there particular positions you're stockpiling right now? Any other particular advice you want to give listeners?
Well, I'll go ahead and start, I guess. I'm stockpiling running backs. A lot of dart throw running backs, a lot of RB2s. Somebody's going to get hurt in the first couple weeks. So if you've got a clear handcuff.
More than somebody.
More than somebody. So if you got a handcuff, something like that, go ahead and do it. James Conner, obviously, if he wasn't rostered, he probably is by now, but he should be. But then your Peyton Barbers, your Chris Carsons, if for some reason they fell through, Jordan Wilkins. I mean, go ahead and pick up people that are going to be starting for some of these guys that are already injured.
Yeah, I mean, there's guys everywhere. I'm doing the same thing. It's all about picking up running backs. About 50% of them, tend to hit and miss. And this is through the draft, always injuries, and it doesn't take much for a running back to find themselves in a Mike Gillislee situation right before the season starts. Always be looking for those dart throws.
Any particular other names that are maybe a little less known that you're looking at?
Jeremy Hill is one. I know he's not a lesser known name amongst fantasy community, but for this season, if you're new, he's a guy, in New England who New England tends to use their goal line back, especially in non-pass happy games.
Gio Bernard, if he's in a more shallow league, he's going to at least start from what it looks like, splitting carries with Mixon, and then I expect that will go down. But he's definitely one that you should be going at. Bilal Powell's another one, and Isaiah Crowell. Who should also be owned.
Both Jets backs. I like Powell's the one who's more likely to be there. I was trying to combine both their names at the same time.
Powell's the one that's more likely to be on waivers, so he should also be owned.
Other names I throw out there, Yeldon, who looks like he's a straight handcuff to Fournette, and I haven't seen him owned. So if you're in a slightly deeper league,
and should be involved in the screen game,
and he will be involved in the passing game if you're like desperate for a fill-in. And then the other one would be Doug Martin was not drafted everywhere, and Lynch is 32, and that's a good offensive line if anything happened.
Gruden, for some reason, loves the young, spry, 29-year-old Doug Martin.
Yeah, I mean, 3 years younger than Lynch at least.
Yeah.
And Warren, who looked like he might be a threat, is out for the year, so don't have to worry about that anymore.
Nope. Jalen Richard lives.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm gonna, the other thing I would do is I generally try to look at every team and earmark who my cuts are. So it's like if somebody becomes available, plan ahead who you're going to cut. So like have a name or two set. Usually it's the first guys I'm going to be looking to cut is going to be, do I have an extra quarterback that maybe I don't need? Am I carrying 2 tight ends and as kind of an upside play, but maybe I don't really need one. So say I have Kyle Rudolph and then I grabbed Ebron or Hooper, which I did on a lot of leagues. If I'm in a situation where like I really need this player who just became available, I'm going to cut that Hooper Ebron type player.
Yep, and also if you took a kind of a late round ugly like safety pick, that may be one of the first people I cut. Also, not an upside play you want to wait on, but like I'm trying to think of an example of this.
If you have
like
a decent
Chris Godwin,
yes. Well, no, Godwin's an upside play. I probably wouldn't.
No. This would be Mohamed Sanu.
Oh, yeah, the other way around. The other way around.
Yeah, this would be like a Mohamed Sanu. That's a perfect example of that.
Or the running back version would be Theo Riddick.
Yep, exactly. Like I took somebody safe in case of injury, and now there's a surefire thing. I'm going to take that. My high end players like Godwin, I'm not cut him for the first couple weeks.
No, there are let's wait and see 3 or 4 weeks if at all possible. I mean, sometimes you can't not make the cut. There's somebody who's just way juicier that you have to make the cut for.
Right.
But most of the time you have 1 or 2 people more expendable.
You also want to see who gets cut. And you also want to look at situations with injuries and suspensions. You look at like Tampa Bay without Winston, that's going to hurt the receiving core. That's going to hurt the offense as a whole. And just Winston's, going to be there. I saw him slip through a 16-team draft, a bunch of 12-team drafts. This is a guy who was the QB1 for the second half of the season last year, on top of the guys that he could be hurting, like a Deshaun Jackson or Chris Godwin, guys who could get cut because of that.
I mean, also keep an eye out for
Mark Ingram.
Anybody who's suspended for the first couple games. I don't think Ingram is going to get cut.
I don't think so either.
But Edelman's
we've
got
seen
drafted
some crazy shit happen.
He could get turned off a roster. Aaron Jones could get turned off a roster during the first couple of weeks.
Aaron Jones definitely get turned off a roster.
So to keep an eye for guys like that where their value might be depressed due to now, but that it could be a quickly changing situation. So those are good stash pieces. One last thing here is if you're sitting in a situation where you're holding 2 kickers, 2 defenses, or like 3 quarterbacks or 3 tight ends, and it's not like a 20+ roster league.
I want to be in your league.
Just
2 kickers.
Start just immediately. I've seen so many screenshots of this type of setup.
It sounds like my type of league.
It's just like take your roster, cut those guys immediately, and grab the best stash candidates you have on your.
The only reason you should have 2 kickers is if you have a top end kicker and it's a bye week.
And even
Tucker
then,
or Zerline, and even then it's a stretch.
Yeah, and even then I would
it's only if you can afford it.
Yeah, and that would have to be like my starting roster is stacked, and I have like all their handcuffs.
Yep.
All right. Any players you're currently targeting on waivers? So a couple of these have been tossed out already, but who are you currently? If waivers haven't opened for you, say they're running after week 1, who are some players you already have on your list?
I think Geronimo Allison's a guy that's probably out there that could with Yancey being cut and Kumaro going to IR is more clearly the wide receiver 3 in Green Bay.
Yep.
Over the 2 rookies, at least to start it. And the Jacksonville wide receivers, D.D. Westbrook is in a good matchup this week. Dante Moncrief is a starter, and those are 2 guys that very well may not have been drafted in your leagues.
And Moncrief may end up being the number 1 red zone threat in the passing game.
He may end up being the number 1 overall. He's the most experienced, even though I love Keelan Cole. Moncrief was used in different ways than the Colts used him. He's a very big body. He's got the size. So if Moncrief is out there, I would stash him.
Yep, I got him on my list. Philip Dorsett, who looks like he's going to run as the wide receiver 2 in New England for the first 4 weeks.
Yeah.
Cordero Patterson's another interesting one, at least for this week.
Deeper leagues or return yardage leagues, I'm definitely looking at Patterson.
Cole Beasley's one.
Oh, Houston gets burned by speed, too, which is something I noticed when I was researching that game. So that's why I threw Patterson out.
Their secondary is not good.
Yeah.
Nope.
Then obviously the obvious names, Morris, Breida, Connor, Gillislee, who we already mentioned, are some running backs I'm definitely shoving lots of money in if you're in any sort of fab situation when waivers open.
Yep.
Any other names to toss out there right now?
Adrian Peterson. If your league missed the news on that, I know it's been about a week or 2, but Scott Fish waivers just went through this morning, so hopefully you got him.
Went for $100 full budget in my league.
I got him for $30.
Oh, not even close in mine.
I know. I was shocked.
Morris and Peterson went for $100 for Peterson and $80 for Morris, respectively.
Holy God!
Yeah, I saw that in some leagues.
Yeah, my league, like the cheapest player I saw go in my league that ran was like $18.
Huh? I didn't look that close. I'll be completely honest.
All right. How do you handle trading, especially for leagues that have just drafted? I'm getting a lot of trade questions early. Personally, that's not something I'm generally trying to do, but if you are looking to make some trades so close to the draft when so little has changed, what are you trying to do?
Trying to strengthen my team. I mean, that's the obvious answer there. If there's some place where I feel like I drafted weak, like I feel like I drafted weak at running back, then if there's a trade, I need to get it to make me better in that area. Or if I'm weak at, which hard to see most teams being weak at wide receiver. It's so deep. You're not going to look at your wide receiver core and probably say, oh man, I wish this was heavier. But running back's a big one.
I've seen some teams. You'd be surprised.
Yeah, you'd be very surprised.
I saw one team that was literally Mike Evans and Deshaun Jackson was his receivers.
Oof.
For his whole team.
What? Yikes. Okay.
How do you pull that off?
I guess
impressive.
My answer is just if you're glaringly weak at a position, then yes, you want to trade to make yourself better there. You glaringly have no depth. You went all upside on your bench. You went all safety and no upside on your bench. You know, a good fantasy team's typically a blend of safety and boom, and balance at all positions. So we're just going to try to make your roster deeper and better.
As a quick aside, just kind of as you've been talking about this, specifically so much draft talk related to this, do not draft to trade.
No.
Yeah.
Draft to win.
I hear it a lot, and it's a terrible strategy, especially when you're in a live draft and your entire league's there. And
you blatantly tell people that you're drafting to trade?
I'm drafting to trade people. Well, no.
This is not a targeted comment.
And especially quarterbacks.
I mean, no, I've seen this in
Entire
so
drafts.
many leagues. It is not targeted at one individual person,
I know.
but it's something you should not do in general. Do not plan to make – because who knows if you can ever make a trade in your league. I've seen plenty of leagues where like you can never pull a trade off.
And you don't know how people are going to perform anyway.
Yeah.
You can guess, but – We all guess. We make educated guesses. That's all we do.
That's more for the end season,
Yeah.
for the mid season strategy when we get to that at some point.
Yeah, you absolutely make waiver pickups to try to like flip assets and things like that. That is absolutely something you do. But during the draft, you're all about covering your own ass to make sure that
You want to
the
get
season.
through the first like 3 to 4 to 5 weeks, figure your
And be
roster
okay.
out, and like figure your shit out from there because you never know.
because you don't know enough going.
Odell
into the
Beckham
season.
might happen. Allen Robinson might happen from last year. So anything can happen.
The other thing I was going to throw out too is I'm generally not making a trade quite this early unless I lost somebody. So if I was the McKinnon owner, I might be making a move right now.
What are you doing if you're a Bell owner?
And that's the other thing I was going to do is if I'm a Bell owner, I ain't doing shit.
Nope.
Now what I'm doing is I'm kicking the tires on the Bell owner in every single league.
And James Conner, because if you need a running back flyer, especially for a flex or if you want wide receiver heavy, and maybe you want to feel more comfortable at the running back position.
Yeah, the only problem with that is James Conner's stock right now is through the roof because nobody knows when Bell's coming back.
But that's where you can use that as your advantage because nobody knows when Bell's coming back. So you can try to flip that
I've
too.
seen
You can try to flip the script. You're right.
Yeah.
He's got to be the toughest player in fantasy
Oh,
to
it's
value right now.
extremely hard to gauge.
I've seen anywhere from just dramatic overpays. Like I saw one trade. It was I think it was Ertz for Connor and Rudolph.
Holy
Jesus. When Dynasty or in redraft?
Redraft.
Jesus Christ.
And then I saw another trade where it was going to be like I think it was Stills plus Connor for Crowder, which is like I would rather keep the Connor side.
That's fine.
So yeah, it's kind of all over the place right now. So, but if you have Connor, I would at least float the offer out there. But I'm looking,
especially to the Bell owner.
Yes, especially.
But yeah, trading this early, I'm looking for assets with rapidly changing value. That's when you generally want to be making trades, not when
I don't do a lot of trading.
Not just right off the draft. All right. What are some QBs, defenses, and kickers you're targeting to stream the first couple weeks? So through like 3 or 4. If maybe say you punted quarterback and there's a massive run, or you're in a 2 QB league or a super flex league, and you might have some of these lower options available. Some cute quarterbacks you might be looking at.
Ravens defense is a great one to start.
Start with quarterbacks.
Start with quarterbacks.
I didn't look at schedules that close, even though I completely did. Let me rephrase. I looked at way too much schedules this week to really know anything beyond week 1. So I can't really answer you. I'm sorry. I didn't read the script. I was not prepared for this question.
I send it to you a day early every time.
I was busy hammering out rankings for the fine listeners of this podcast last night and was a little occupied today.
I'm looking at week 2.
All right. Well, I'll throw some names out there.
Yeah, please do, because we clearly weren't prepared for this.
So these are guys who are generally going to be ranked 20 or lower, or like maybe 18-ish or lower. I have some decently nice schedules to start. Ryan Tannehill actually starts with a pretty decent matchup. He gets the Titans at home, goes on the road to play the Jets. Then he gets the Raiders at home, and then he plays the Patriots on the road, who you can often get some decent volume against.
Yeah, and Tannehill's perennially a 4,000-yard passer anyway. They're going to have to throw because the defense is all right, but it's not fantastic. So
yeah, he's a decent desperation. Like, I need a 4-week stopgap. So maybe you had Wentz and you just did not draft a backup quarterback.
I don't hate Blake Bortles.
Bortles is also going to be on my list.
New England in week 2, Tennessee in week 3. Haven't seen week 4 yet.
Week 4, he gets the Jets at home.
So
he was also on my list.
There was somebody.
The other one I'm going to throw out there is Alex Smith.
That
was one I was looking at
too.
Tough first matchup on the road against the Cardinals, but then he gets the Colts at home, the Packers at home, and then the Saints on the road, which should be a shootout.
Yeah.
So I like those last 3 games, and even against the Cardinals, I don't like it, but I don't hate it. It's just kind of meh.
I don't hate Tyrod either. I know he doesn't get a good matchup in week 2 against the Saints, but you mentioned shootouts.
Yeah,
and the defense and offense has improved vastly.
And he's got floor.
And he always has floor for you.
I mean, Tyrod's one of those players where, like, I need a streamer and I don't like any of these names. They're all have crappy matchups. Tyrod's going to run a bit. Take him.
Fuck it.
Yeah.
So there'll be some names to check out. You'd have to be decently desperate for some of those, but if something happened in your draft, say that you got bad Wentz news and you drafted early, could be a possible fill-in for you.
Yeah.
Some defenses you guys are looking at. You mentioned the Ravens. I don't think they're going to be available for people, though.
No, but you'd be surprised.
Saints would be kind of in the same boat of having a good start.
They're probably not going to be available in a lot of leagues either, given what they did last year.
Probably slightly more available than the Ravens, but not by much.
If your league hasn't caught up on Chicago yet, I don't like the week 1 matchup, but
after that,
I mean, they get the Vikings.
And the week 1 matchup could be surprisingly good, just given that offensive line and the added pass rush. But we'll see.
Vegas does not agree, but hopefully Vegas is wrong.
I know Vegas does not agree, and I do think that -7.5 Green Bay favorite is wrong.
-7?
Yeah,
I take
7.5.
Chicago. I think
Chicago.
that game is close.
No, I'm literally going to bet on that game for my first sports betting ever.
Oh.
Shout out my bookie.
All right.
No free ads.
Some other teams I throw on the list here. Lions have a decent start to the season. They get the Jets at home. They go to at the 49ers. Patriots at home is an ugly one, but then they go on the road to the Cowboys. So I love 2 of those. One of them I like and one of them I hate.
What's Arizona's schedule?
I don't have Cardinals schedule in front of me. Could you check that real quick, Dan?
Week 3, they get Chicago. 2, they get the Rams at home or on the road. I don't like that one.
Yeah.
And I know their week 4 I don't think is good either.
Okay. So their week 1's good.
Week 1's...
I don't hate New England either.
Week 1's all right.
New England's defense, if your league doesn't hurt you negatively too much for yardage,
Beerfield Fantasy fumbles through a question.
That's right.
All right. I also threw Titans out there. They open at the Dolphins. They get the Texans, which looks bad on paper, but their offensive line should be horrendous.
It's rated the worst in the league per PFF.
Yep.
Houston's offensive line.
They go to the Jaguars. Not a world beater on offense, so it may not be a terrible matchup for them. Week 4 against the Eagles is ugly, but so maybe 2 out of the first 4 you can
Wentz
struggle.
isn't there.
If it's still Foles, that might not be too bad. And the last one I threw out was the Dolphins. Titans at home, on the road to the Jets. Raiders on the road. So decent first 3 weeks for them. So if you're really desperate for defense, there's a couple names to look at. Last one, a couple kickers you might be looking at early.
Oh, man. Daniel Carlson, if he didn't get drafted.
Any kicker on an offense that's going to be at least decent. And
so
can at least kick in a dome.
So Carlson is in a dome 2 of the first 3 weeks, and they're good matchups.
And he's got a leg.
Will Lutz
gets
his first 3 in a dome.
Yep.
Matt Bryant, weeks 2, 3, and 4 are all in a dome. I don't love him week 1 in Philly. I think that's going to be a tough game for him.
Most Thursday nights to open the season are high scoring, which, yes, may bode well, at least for the offensive players, but at least for kicking wise, could be a lot of field goals.
Matt Prater gets 3 of his first 4 weeks in a dome, and Brandon McManus, 3 of his first 4 weeks are in Denver.
I'm so glad one of us was prepared for this.
I love Brandon McManus.
Thanks, Nick.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you were prepared for this because I wasn't.
So those are 5 names to look at if you're like, I don't know if I like my kicker. So these are some decent names. And once the matchups aren't good or you don't like the situation, churn them off. Same with the defense and same with some of those streaming quarterbacks.
It's called streaming.
Do not get attached. All right. Any last other tips we want to go over?
Nope.
All right. Dan?
No.
All right. I got one.
Of course you do.
Don't start Thursday night or early Sunday players in your flex spot. What? You need another beer?
I need another beer.
Oh.
I told Hurricane that. I was like, make sure you have no flex players.
Something I go over.
No Thursday night players in your flex positions.
And ideally, it should be your last player of the week. So
if anyone's like questionable, so you have a little bit more options, but also make sure that they're later games. Obviously, no Thursday night games.
Ideally, it should be your Monday night game or your Sunday night game. Whoever's playing last of your wide receiver, running back, or tight end that you're thinking of flexing.
Something I go over with live studio audience every week, every year.
Yep. Just keep that in mind. You don't want to ever lock yourself out of a flex spot because of an injury that happens on Friday.
Nope.
All right. Let's talk beer review, and then we got our starts of the week.
Ooh, excited.
Beer review.
All right, on today's episode, we had Marine Dream IPA, the beer that apparently was so good, Hopper wanted to double his pleasure, double the fun, so he reached for a second one.
It's just so easy to drink.
6.5%, 50 IBU, so it's
It's not bitter.
It's a very easy drink.
It's decently bitter, but it's a smooth bitter.
It's very smooth. The tropical balances out the bitter really well.
Yep.
It's a really easy drink. I don't really know how else to put it. You kind of get light, citrusy hops on the nose. It finishes slightly bitter, but I mean, it's just a real pleasant all the way through experience.
Yeah. No real intensity on any of the flavors. It's light on the tropical, kind of light on the bitter. Or I should say maybe more mellowed on the bitter. Like you taste it, but it's not harsh.
The bitter there is on the after.
Yep.
It just sticks on the tongue a little bit longer.
Yeah.
Which is fine.
Wine comparison to be considered like dry almost.
Semi-dry.
Yeah.
I'd give it a semi-dry.
Semi-dry. So yeah, that's Marine Dream IPA. How do we say we're going to pronounce it?
Coronado.
Coronado.
I don't care if it's Ron.
So
Shout out to this house.
Shout out Coronado Brewing Company. Thank you very much for jumping on the show. The first time we've had them on. Let's go ahead and get our starts of the week.
Start 'em, sit 'em.
Start 'em, sit 'em.
All right, so we're going to give you 4 starts: a quarterback, a running back, a wide receiver, and a tight end. Then we're going to give you one player who people seem to be higher on that we are recommending you avoid this week. Kicking it off first, Dan, who is your quarterback start of the week?
I like Tyrod Taylor this week. We've talked a lot about him.
Tyrod.
That's been like the biggest argument because like we get like incorrect sources throughout. Of how it's supposed to be said.
So apparently how it is most people call him Tyrod. His mom calls him Tyrod.
So this is like the Kamara situation, right?
Where he mispronounces his own name. Yep.
All right, Tyrod Tayller. I love him this week, especially if you lost, got like Wentz, or if you drafted like Garoppolo or Mahomes, and you want somebody else to throw in there as a quarterback to flex this week. Pittsburgh's defense really hasn't looked good since they lost. Since last year, they haven't really improved that defense this offseason. The Browns have gotten massively better. Yes, there could be concern for that, growing wolves in the first few weeks of the season, but I expect Cleveland to come out and try to, make a statement this first week against the Steelers at home. He's one of these safer players you can throw out there. I hate using that word, but
and he should have all his weapons. Gordon's going to suit up and play. Callaway's going to start. So it sounds like everyone's going to be there ready for him. So this is a decent chance for him. I don't like him quite as much as your quarterback 13 ranking. I think I'm going to get close to like 17.
Yeah,
but
16.
He's a decent streamer for me.
Yeah, that's about where I've got him.
All right,
with Dan.
All right, not shocked by Hopper's choice.
Yeah, I went with Blake. I went with the boat. Jesus himself, Blake Bortles. The Giants allowed 5 passers over 300 yards last season. They didn't really do a whole lot on their defense. They give up multiple touchdowns in 10 games. And in 4 of Bortles' last 5 games, the one he didn't being, last week of the season where they weren't really playing anybody, he went for multiple touchdowns, and Keelan Cole was his wide receiver 1 in those 4 games. So I like the way these teams match up. Even though the Giants didn't do a whole lot on defense, they did add some offensive firepower. They've got Odell back. Yes, the Jags defense is good, but like you said, the Jags offense isn't a world beater, which should keep them throwing. They're not going to be able to go one-dimensional with the running game. I expect Fournette to be involved in the passing game. The Giants do give up decent yardage on screen passes, which is going to help Bortles as people pick up yak for him.
And he runs.
And he runs.
Yep.
So he's got a nice floor too. So he's my quarterback 12, and he's definitely in that streamer conversation that we were talking about earlier.
So there's actually some news today. I may have to move him up ever so slightly. Olivier Vernon is not going to be able.
I bumped him up. I was a little too low on him, but I already bumped him up.
So they're going to be without their best pass rusher, which should help him out as well. As we previewed last week, Andy Dalton is my pick. Didn't change on that. He gets to face a Colts defense that allowed 20 plus fantasy points in 2017 to quarterbacks named Carson Palmer, Deshaun Kaiser, Brian Hoyer, Blake Bortles a second time, Brock Osweiler, and Andy Dalton.
Well done.
Russell Wilson also did it, but that's less surprising. Solid matchup for a team that should be better in 2018 offensively, and he already did in 2017, so hey, why not again?
Fuck it.
Indeed.
Red Rocket, let's go.
All right, Dan, who is your running back?
Royce Freeman.
Rookie.
Remember that time when Seattle's defense was vaunted, and you want to avoid them, all that shit? Well, that day is gone. Their front four looks pretty terrible. If you look at PFF grade, I think the highest grade is like 65. It is fucking atrocious up front. Yes, Bobby Wagner is very good, but
Bobby Wagner's not playing.
Bobby Wagner's not even playing. He makes this even better. Yes, Earl Thomas is back, but that's the safety.
No, he's not.
He's playing. He's back, though.
He is not reported.
He's not back.
Errol Thomas is.
He reported. I read the note that he reported today.
It was.
Either way, makes this even better. Then Royce Freeman, don't buy into this Devonta Booker hype that he's going to start. Freeman is
Freeman's the number one on the depth chart.
On the depth chart, he's going to play vastly outperformed any running back that played this preseason. So it's a Freeman all day, and I expect him to at least kind of balance out Case Keenum's type of craziness.
All right, I apologize for being wrong on the news. That literally broke on my drive home today.
You mean you don't know everything?
I'm not perfect.
I saw it earlier.
That just crushed my image of you.
Terrible person.
Terrible.
All right. Well, while you're disappointed, why don't you tell us your start of the week?
My next start of the week is Chris Thompson, the Redskins running back against the Cardinals. 11 backs had 4 or more receptions. 7 of them went for over 50 yards. 3 of them scored touchdowns against the Cardinals last year. And the other thing with Chris Thompson is he will split into the slot. So slot receivers, 18 guys out of the slot. 18 guys went over 50 yards against the Cardinals last season.
In 16 games? That's impressive.
Yeah. No, that's true. 18 guys in 16 games. That means that there were some games.
I'm saying it's impressive.
Yeah. And that included Jamison Crowder. So obviously this bodes well for him. He's not my start of the week. Thompson is, but Thompson splits out wide. Cooper Kupp twice. Bruce Ellington, Golden Tate, Doug Baldwin, Adam Humphries. All guys that run out of the slot, which Thompson will do. He's going to be moved all over the field. He's going to come out of the backfield. So if you're looking for a PPR running back to start in your flex position this week, Chris Thompson is my running back 35. That makes him flex worthy. And I think that in any form of PPR format, he's worth the start.
I love Chris Thompson this week. Alex Smith loves throwing to his running backs. So
yep. In fact, Dan and I both have Chris Thompson higher than you do. So
I know you do.
We definitely.
So I know you agree.
We rubber stamp this endorsement.
Yep.
Yes. All right. I'm going to go with Alex Collins, who might be in his best matchup of the year, started kicking it off in week 1. He faced a run defense that gave up 26 points a game last year to opposing running backs, last in the NFL. The offense should be ahead in game script. They should be playing ahead in this game. Defense should give them short fields. So I like Collins, and I also like Buck Allen this week.
I approve. He's at 13, so
I got him at 11.
I know.
Guys, I would start him over this week. Let's see. Devonta Freeman. I'd start him over Barkley. I'd start him over Hunt. I'd start him over McCaffrey.
Yeah.
So, yeah, Collins, love him this week. It's a fantastic matchup, and I don't think that run defense got much better this offseason.
I don't think it did at all.
All right. Wide receiver. Dan, kick us off. This one is basically just guy in front of him is injured.
Yep. Nelson Aguilar. He's my wide receiver 22 for this week. I'm a huge fan of him this week because Nick Foles only has him and Zach Ertz to throw to. There's nothing else there to really know. Jeffrey Ajayi is healthy but doesn't get involved much in the passing game. Corey Clement.
We'll get to Clement.
I know. Clement can do that role, but there's one concern, and that is the Nick Foles concern. You're going to get a very good Nick Foles or a very bad Nick Foles, nothing much in between. But I think the amount of targets that he should get against Atlanta's offense, which is a good enough, or against Atlanta, who has a good enough offense to keep this game close, and Thursday games typically being more high scoring, there is a good chance that that Aguilar can carry yourself in a Thursday night game into a victory week 1.
So I saw that Aguilar completely. I'll explain in a second.
I know.
All right, go ahead and explain.
All right, so I was going to change this to, I had originally had my start of the week as Calvin Ridley, and then I made it Chris Hogan, and then in the middle I switched it back to Calvin Ridley, and then I remembered I'm talking about him later on this show anyway. I'll get to give him love anyway, so I wanted to give Chris Hogan love in this show, so I switched it back because I remembered why I made it Hogan and not Ridley in the first place.
All right, you'll also get to explain your Ridley ranking later, so that'll be interesting.
That's exactly it. I get to explain my Ridley ranking later. So hold on, let me find my notes on Chris Hogan. There he is. All right, Chris Hogan. Aside from the fact that people in front of him are suspended or cut, and the Patriots don't have any wide receivers, Houston allowed 7 100-yard receivers last season. Hogan went for 68 and 2 touchdowns against them. They really did struggle with speed. Guys that went over 75 yards against Houston last season: Paul Richardson, Marquise Goodwin, Tyler Lockett, Brandon Cooks, Robert Woods, T.Y. Hilton, Keelan Cole. Tyreek Hill also was just below that at 68. All guys with above average speed, which is what Chris Hogan has. He should be the top wide receiver target on this team this week. Look, most people are drafting Hogan to start him, so this is just kind of reaffirming that draft pick. If he was your wide receiver 3 you were thinking about don't. Absolutely start Chris Hogan.
Yeah, I'd rather start him over Amari Cooper this week. Few other names here. Take him over Cooper. So again, I'd even start him over Tyreek Hill this week.
I've got him one spot above Hill. He's above Landry for me, Thielen, Juju, Baldwin, Cooper. So,
yeah, I agree with all of those. All right, last one here for wide receiver. I'm putting a rubber stamp on basically the whole Lions offense, but specifically I wanted to highlight Golden Tate, who I have as a wide receiver 1 this week. Jets were bottom 10 in the league against wide receivers last year. We'll be behind the 8 ball this one, where I think the Lions are going to blow them out early. But this is just start all your lines against them. I love Jones. He's my 16. Stafford is a top 5 quarterback for me this week. I like Galladay as a desperation flex play. And I don't mind all the running backs as kind of I need somebody. Like Garrett Blount might score a touchdown.
He might.
He could.
He probably will.
I don't expect this Jets defense to be fantastic. They were bottom 10 against both running and passing last year, and the Lions are a team where they pass to run, so expect lots of passes to both Jones, Tate, and
that offensive line
and Galladay.
And that offensive line isn't as strong as people think, so the running game may not get off to a strong start, which means more throwing
And short passes because they can't hold blocks.
Yep.
All right, let's get our tight ends out of the way here. Dan, who do you have?
Doyle rules. Fucking Jack Doyle is my start of the week for tight ends. I love him this week. He is the number 2 receiver on this offense, right behind T.Y. Hilton. One of the worst offensive lines that is what Indy boasts, which means a lot of potential short passes and dump offs and check downs and all that good things, which is what fits in the Jack Doyle's wheelhouse very, very well. Yes, Ebron is there, but Ebron is more of a seam move tight end type of runner where he gets more explosive plays and big plays. Doyle's going to be your PPR guy that's going to carry you through week 1.
So I'm assuming you like Doyle gets a bump up in full point and Ebron will get a bump up in standard.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. Hopper couldn't stick off the Jaguars.
I couldn't, but there's a good reason for it. Austin Seferian-Jenkins is my tight end 7. Actually, Ricky Seals-Jones is up there too. So if you have a hyphenated tight end available, go for it.
If they end in SJ,
yeah,
any hyphens.
Hopper says start him.
But ASJ, the Giants, as we mentioned when I talked about Bortles, didn't really change their defense much. They allowed 9 tight ends over 50 yards and 12 touchdowns to tight ends.
Giants were bad last year.
So
tight ends.
Yes, they were, and they haven't really changed anything. So
now, how much of that? So the defense should have been better. How much of that was just the team just phoning it in?
I don't know. We're gonna find out in week 1.
We are gonna find out in week 1.
That's why we
may be wrong about this.
You know, the numbers say start him. So I'm gonna go for that. Bortles also will throw to his tight ends down in the red zone. So I mean, for streaming tight ends, which is what ASJ is, you hope for a little bit of yardage and probably a touchdown, and he's got a good chance at doing that against a team that allowed 12 of them last year.
Unfortunately, it's not in London, so he can't count on 3.
No.
All right. Mine's going to be Tyler Eifert. So Colts were below average against tight ends last year. They finished allowing almost 10 points a game in half-point PPR, which was, I believe, 12th worst in the league. So they're not like the Giants or the Browns last year where they were like you were targeting tight ends against them, but they weren't good. On top of it, this might be your only real shot to confidently start Eifert because he's coming into the week healthy.
He's my tight end 9.
So
I agree.
Take a swing. If you have Eifert, this might be your one shot.
One opportunity.
All right. What do we got for sits of the week?
Go ahead. I made it one drop. We combine the two.
All right, Dan.
Combine. So I put Garoppolo down. I don't think this one's much of a shocker. He gets to face the Vikings defense, number 2 against the pass last year, number 1 against points allowed total.
On the road.
No
McKinnon.
Just look elsewhere. There's so many better options. We just gave you 3 quarterbacks that I would vastly start over Garoppolo this week.
Yeah, on the quarterback side, if you drafted Mahomes, Garoppolo, or Ryan as your starter this week, I recommend you look elsewhere.
I give you we just gave you 3 of them that you should probably start otherwise.
Yeah, or Manning for some reason. If you did that for some reason, look elsewhere.
If you drafted Manning expecting to start in week 1, better be super flex.
Yeah. Hopefully.
Unfortunately.
2 QBs.
Okay. Hopper, your sit of the week.
Trey Burton. Green Bay was the anti-New York Giants as far as it came to tight ends. And again, they didn't really, they drafted some rookie cornerbacks, but as far as their linebackers and safeties go, Haha is still there. They only allowed 250-yard tight ends all of last season. Both of those required 10-plus targets to get there. Olsen went for 116 on 12. Witten went for 61 on 10. So a lot of volume. I don't expect Burton to get that type of volume. And they only allowed 3 touchdowns to tight ends all last season. So you probably drafted Burton to start him, but this is a good week to look at hyphenated last names. Streaming.
Yep, or if Eifert didn't get drafted, take him too.
Yeah, or if Eifert didn't get drafted, but stay away from Trey Burton this week if you can.
Yeah, I have a league where I am starting Trey Burton. It's kind of a YOLO play.
Dynasty, I have to.
It is Dynasty.
And it could, it's a completely different offense, so maybe it does go well. Because Trey Burton does have some wide receiver qualities, but...
And also that defense, they were good against tight end. That's because they couldn't stop a receiver to save their lives, so they just tight ends were never getting a read.
Exactly, they could not stop a receiver to save their life, which is why I love Miller and Robinson. So
I think that was the same thing that happened. Was it Tampa Bay was the same way? They were like really good against tight ends because no one ever bothered throwing to the tight end.
They didn't have to.
They didn't have to.
Yep. More on those guys on Friday's episode.
All right. My sit of the week, Jordan Wilkins. This is more of a narrative thing. He's technically going to get the start, it sounds like, but it sounds like it's going to be a pretty heavy split between him and Michael. So I don't think he gets more than maybe 55% of the volume with some Hines sprinkled in there as well. On top of it, Bengals have been generally a above average run defense in 2 out of the last 3 years. Last year they weren't, but they were also just terrible everywhere.
Team against running backs last year.
No, the Bills were.
They were the second worst team against.
I think they were like 4th worst.
They were bad.
They were bad, but they were bad. Everything about them was bad last year. I expect some of that to at least come back to the norm here, and generally what they've been good at has been run defense. They have a great defensive tackle in Geno Atkins, so I think it's going to be a tough sledding to get the running game going, and I think the Bengals are going to be out in front on this one, and could be by a lot. Mm-hmm. I think the Colts may come out a little rusty. I don't want a lot to do with their running game in general, and with what we saw from Wilkins in preseason, I'm not interested in it. I know a lot of people have been pushing him as a week 1 pick up and plug. I'm recommending you don't.
No running backs look good in that backfield this year.
He should be owned.
Preseason.
He should be owned because he could win the job. So he should be owned on your depth or in your bench if you have any sort of decent depth. But I'm not rolling him out week 1.
I agree.
All right. I think we just have
weekly previews.
Weekly preview.
I went all over the place there. I love it. It's like piano, has guitar, then solo.
All right.
So I wanted it to build up.
We got the Falcons at the Eagles. Hopper's taking point on this one. What should we know about? Are you starting with the Falcons or the Eagles?
I'm going to start out with the Falcons. So obviously you're starting Julio. You're starting your studs basically. I would stay away from Coleman, Sanu, and then I would start Ridley in this one, and we're going to talk about why. First off, Matt Ryan, you probably drafted him to start him. I would stay away this week. You mentioned that kind of, I think. So let's just talk about why. 3 of Matt Ryan's 4 300-yard pass games were against bottom half pass defenses. 2 of those were against Carolina, who was 18th. 1 against Tampa Bay, who was 32nd. The only one that wasn't against a bottom half pass defense was week 1 against Chicago, who was not what they were at the end of the year, at the beginning of the year.
And also, it was mainly one broken play that pushed him over 300 yards.
Looking at you, Austin Hooper. Only 2 of his 8 250-yard games were against top 15 defenses. That was Chicago week 1, again, Austin Hooper. and then New Orleans in week 15. The Eagles defense only allowed 4 300-yard passes between regular season and the playoffs last year. So you're not going to get a lot of volume yardage out of Matt Ryan. You're going to be depending on touchdowns. So that's just not something you want to do.
And that's not been Matt Ryan's game.
No, it's never been his game. So I would steer clear of that. As for the running backs, Philadelphia gave up only 1 receiving touchdown to a running back last season. It was to Chris Thompson. They had 1 running back over 40 yards receiving, Andre Ellington. Gurley, Zeke, Hunt, all 3 receptions only and under 40 yards. 1 player had over 100 rushing yards. That was Zeke in week 16 on 27 attempts. 2 backs averaged 4 yards a carry or more on 15-plus carries. That was Davis and Morris. So that being said, Freeman, you probably have to start him in most cases, but Tevin Coleman, probably steer clear of that one if you can this week.
Yeah, I want if I can avoid both running backs. I want to.
Yep. Julio Jones went 9 for 101 on a playoff matchup with Philly. You're obviously going to start Julio. There's no way to avoid it. You might not get a giant week from him, but you're starting Julio.
You never know. It's the first Thursday of the year.
Yeah. Shout out Fantasy Football Weekly on this. The last 3 matchups against Philly: 16 targets, 11 targets.
Yep.
They seem to game plan to feed Julio against them.
Yep. Now, one thing I do want to mention here is Calvin Ridley. Calvin Ridley, when I looked at this, really jumped out. Of the 10 100-yard games that the Eagles allowed last year, which, yes, they did allow 10 of them, 9 were to guys that worked the slot at least part of the time. Keenan Allen, Cooper Kupp, Tyrell Williams, Chris Hogan, Danny Amendola, and Sterling Shepard twice. They also gave up 200-yard games to tight ends, Gronk and Kelsey. So you can beat them over the middle of the field. Julio's primarily going to work outside. Sanu will work mostly outside. Ridley's their slot guy.
So I've actually heard conflicting things about this, is that Ridley and Sanu will rotate into the slot.
I think Ridley's more built for the slot.
I agree.
That's why I'm putting my dart throw on Ridley. I mean, we don't know because it is week 1, but if you're in a position where you're in a 3 wide receiver league and you need to put an upside play on that 3rd wide receiver, I'm just saying Calvin Ridley is not a bad option. He's somebody I would try to look to get in there. Or
reminder, not in your flex.
Not in your flex.
Yeah, it's not in your flex.
No, do not put him in your flex, but I think Calvin Ridley could be in for a big week. And then Austin Hooper, I said I was steering away from him. They only allowed 4 games over 50 yards to tight ends, that being Philly. Evan Ingram when he was the only option, Jordan Reed, and then Vernon Davis. That was it. So Hooper is a guy that they typically haven't game planned to get involved. He's had some blow up weeks, but this isn't the week to expect it. So any other thoughts on the Falcons?
I don't totally hate Hooper just because linebackers is probably the main weakness of the Phillies defense. Mm-hmm. But I would try to look for other options first.
Yeah, especially given the fact that they feed Julio and slot receivers tend to feast here.
Yep. Any interest in the Falcons defense or Matt Bryant?
Falcons defense is kind of in that streamer range for me, as is Matt Bryant. I really don't expect this to turn into the shootout because I think Philly's pass rush and defense is just going to overwhelm the Falcons, especially at home, celebrating the Super Bowl. The reason I say that there is some interest in the defense, though, you do have that chance for a Super Bowl hangover. It is kind of like the pomp and circumstance of everything we've seen teams fall flat under that before. You also kind of have the chance that, Nick Foles is more of what you saw out of Nick Foles in the preseason. So
there's definitely,
and when he came into the league last year, not the league actually, but when he came in and finished out the season last year, outside of the one game against the Giants,
he was mostly one touchdown.
Fucking garbage.
He wasn't giving up a whole lot.
Yeah.
No.
In that first game in the wild card against.
So Atlanta's an interesting stream this week.
Yeah, there is good Nick Foles and there is bad.
As
Nick
I mentioned
Foles.
earlier, there's only 2 Nick Foles you get, good and bad.
So if you like gambling, consider the Falcons defense.
Yep.
Some say I'm a gambling man.
Yep. Smooth transition into Nick Foles, by the way. He's a sit for me this week. He's had 2 games over 300 yards since 2014. Both were last year in the playoffs at home. 3 more touchdowns in 3 of 5 starts last year, including the playoffs. So that's the good side of it. And the Falcons did allow 250-plus yards and 2 touchdowns 5 times last year to Russell Wilson, Aaron Rodgers, Josh McCown, Drew Brees, Jameis Winston, but only one of them was a 300-yard passer. So there's some good and bad with Foles. There may be some touchdown upside there. Probably not going to be a lot of yardage, though, and he's like garbage in the preseason, and you can avoid him, so I would do it.
Yeah.
You unless you're the Wentz owner and you were desperate in a dynasty league, that's about it.
Yeah. Now, Jay Ajayi, Corey Clement. Both.
No, as a quick aside,
Yeah.
I am starting Nick Foles over Matt Ryan in a dynasty league.
I probably would do that. Yes. I
Yeah.
like Foles more than
I
Ryan.
think I'm on that train.
Jay Ajayi, Corey Clement. So Ajayi, my concern is that they try to limit his work for knee issues, but regardless of limiting his work.
Well, we do know the injury now. It was not knee, it was foot.
Oh, was it? Okay, I didn't know that.
And he's full practice.
Regardless, transitioning into my next point, though, high in carries for Eagles back last season was 16. It was Blunt 3 times, Ajayi once. Nobody was over 16 carries in this backfield.
So at most, he's getting 20 touches.
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe.
The Falcons did allow one rusher over 100 yards and only one. That was Ajayi on 26 attempts in the playoffs. So not a lot of chance for yardage. But the thing that's interesting here, they did allow 5 or more receptions 9 times, 7 backs over 40 yards. So both of these backs can catch passes. They're going to be down on pass catchers. So in any form of PPR format, Corey Clement, Jay Ajayi, I say roll them both out there. Probably not going to be smooth sailing in the run game. The Falcons tend to be pretty good against that, but both of them will be involved in the passing game. They're short Alshon Jeffrey. They're going to need to throw to people, and running backs have had success against Atlanta, who didn't change a whole lot.
A lot of success.
Yes.
All right, receivers.
No Alshon. The only receiver I'm interested in here is Nelson Aguilar. When he gets 6+ targets, he averages 5.5 receptions, 67 yards, and nearly a touchdown a game. Atlanta, when they give up 6+ targets to a receiver, about the same, 5.5 receptions, 66 yards, and just under half a touchdown per game. So it's an interesting play. He's going to get Trufant. So
Will Trufant roll into the slot?
no, he won't. So if they play if they play Aguilar strictly out of the slot, he is an amazing play this week. And I do think he's an amazing play this week. He's a wide receiver 2 for me.
I do expect him to roll out some 2 tight ends, so I'm interested to see if they do play him on the outside. I expect him to play him outside too, so I do.
So
And Goddard may be involved.
the more he
Trufant doesn't really shadow either.
I will like him more the more he plays out of the slot.
I will too.
Oh yeah,
But the averages line up pretty well to where you can probably expect 5 to 6 receptions, about 70 yards, and a touchdown from Nelson Aguilar. That's good for that. You're happy with that week.
That'd be borderline wide receiver 1.
Yeah,
So.
you're happy with that week. Now
Ertz.
Ertz is a must start. I didn't even make notes on Zach Ertz because you're down
start your
Alshon
stud.
Jeffrey and you start your studs and here's your tight end 3. You're not sitting him.
All right. Any interest in Goddard with all the injuries?
2 tight end leagues probably is a start. I mean, he's a rookie. And it's week 1, so I don't necessarily want to put an endorsement on that. But if you're in a giant pinch, then yeah, sure. I think that they try to find pass catchers wherever they can. I think a lot of that's out of the backfield, but Goddard could be interesting. You're probably hoping for a touchdown at that point, but
I mean, yeah,
that's what Goddard does.
you're hoping for a Trey Burton type.
I mean,
day
outside of
last
about
year.
4 or 5 tight ends, you're generally just hoping for a touchdown.
Yeah, that's what Goddard does, catches touchdowns. I like Jake Elliott in this matchup. I like the Eagles' defense. They don't give up a ton of touchdowns. 2 tight ends and 2 running backs had 2 touchdowns or more last year. That's it. They will kind of give up touchdowns via the air. But really, they're going to they got a good pass rush, sacks in play, interceptions are always in play. So
great special teams with Sproles.
good special teams. So I like the Eagles defense this year, especially given the fact I don't like Matt Ryan as much.
Yeah, I don't love this matchup, but if you have to start the Eagles, I don't hate it.
Yeah, it's not the worst matchup. You're not going to get a defense 1 performance from them, but top 10's expected.
Okay. All right. Anything else we got on this preview?
Nope.
Just a note, when we do Friday previews, they will not be that long per game. We will definitely speed those up a little bit.
Yeah, it's Thursday. We got a little bit more time, so.
All right. Well, thank you so much for tuning in to Beer Fueled Fantasy Football. Remember to please subscribe on YouTube, Beer Fueled Fantasy Football, and check us out Sunday morning at 10:30 a.m. Central. All 3 of us are going to be there to answer all your Week 1 questions. So trades, start sits, flex questions, anything you guys got, please jump on with us Sunday morning and throw them at us. You can find us Beer Fueled Fantasy Football for YouTube or for Facebook as well. Beerfield FF, Twitter, Instagram, Untapped. Shout out Marine Dream IPA. Shout out Squad QL for sponsoring the show. And we'll catch you guys next time on Beer Fueled Fantasy Football. We'll preview Week 1.
See ya.
Remix.
Remix? Or you say Remax like the realtors.
Remax.
Remax.